Hi, friends. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Ashley Aireonna, joined by the wonderful Tom Jensen. Hi, Tom. How are you doing?
Doing well, Ashley. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm in pretty good spirits today, which is nice. It's not as sunny as I would like it to be in the Bay, but I'm finally back home after a lot of traveling, and it feels good to be. Sometimes I think a good trip is like when you really enjoy yourself when you're there, but then you're excited to be home at the same time. And so I'm
True.
excited to be back. I went out and voted today. So anyone watching, make sure you go out and vote. If you're in California, yes on Prop 60. Nope. Yes on Prop 50.
50.
I've been seeing, I was just in New York for the 49ers game, and I feel like jealous of everyone in New York who gets to vote for Zoran. I'm trying to not get too excited because I feel like I've been disappointed before. But I'm feeling feelings of hopefulness.
He's projected to win. It sounds like he'll get 51% of the vote.
And it feels like I feel very like hopeful in a way that I haven't in a little while. Not necessarily that it'll like make a big impact on, where we are, because we're not in New York, but like kind of just what it means, the implications. I like to know that it makes me feel good to feel like the majority of society cares about each other and wants to do stuff to make things better for themselves and for others. And I feel like I've been feeling that vibe today. So that's probably why I've been so positive. Yeah. Now, some people who were not hopeful today, they were cutting through the optimism and sticking to realism, is the 49ers front office and John Lynch. So additionally, besides voting election day, it was the trade deadline today. It ended at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I assumed that the 49ers were going to make a move, if not multiple moves. They're out. I mean, they just lost Michael Williams, their first round pick, to a torn ACL. MetLife Stadium takes another soul. That can be a different discussion. The NFL needs to ban turf. I think that's horrible.
Yeah.
But they lose Michael. They're already out Bosa. They're already out Fred Warner. Their secondary was shit to start the year before they were even out these guys. Tom, is it weird that I'm shocked that the 49ers did not make a move? I felt very...
No. I think that it kind of plays into who John Lynch is. I don't think that this was the Niners deciding we're too injured to win the Super Bowl, so forget it. Let's just toss the year. I don't think that's what happened. I think that you go back to Lynch's history, where he always plants his flag in the ground, is on his asking price. And that's why he refused to move Jimmy Garoppolo for years, because the league wouldn't meet his price. Today, same thing. Lynch said, apparently, according to reports anyway, 4th round picks as high as I'm willing to go. And in this environment, in this deadline year, this many buyers, this few sellers, it's a seller's market. And so if you don't overpay, you're not getting a thing. And that's exactly what happened. It's Lynch refused to overpay. And that's his history. That's what he's always done. So it didn't surprise me that, given this environment of a seller's market, this isn't the kind of atmosphere that John Lynch makes deals in.
During the game, Jay Glazer of ESPN Network came out, and he said that the 49ers were going to be one of the more aggressive teams during the trade deadline. I see what you're saying. Like, I completely agree that, especially when it comes to selling, almost more than buying, but selling, they have held on to assets that other teams have said, we do not value these players as highly as you do. And they're like, okay, well, we'll keep this guy on our roster because we're not trading him for anything less than we think he's worth.
Yeah. And that was Garoppolo, and that was some other players too. But if I could quickly, sorry, Ashley. Millie Mills says John Lynch always overpays everyone. He does. In contracts, he overpays. In trades, he won't overpay. He refuses to overpay.
Well,
or he insists on his asking price being made.
Well, Tom.
Yeah, what Scubba said.
I think this is a bad strategy because
sure it is.
49ers are not good at drafting. The 49ers
Correct.
have actually been successful in their trades. I would say their most recent, like a bigger blockbuster trade was Christian McCaffrey, right? And you would look back and say it was worth all the draft picks that they gave up to go get Christian. Why? To me, and the reason I titled it "The 49ers Waving a White Flag" is, to me, this is showing what the front office and what John Lynch, what they actually think of their team. It doesn't matter that they're 6-3, which is an incredible record. And other teams in the NFL, like, if you were to say who's going to win the Super Bowl this year, who's the best team in the NFL, every good team has lost to a bad team so far. Like, teams are up and down this year. It seems more wide open than ever, which is one of the reasons that makes the injury so hard to stomach, because it really does feel like if there was just a solid base of players that the 49ers could choose from right now, that they would be able to go very far. It feels weird to me when with the schedule that they have, they're basically guaranteed to get into the playoffs, even without the trades. But it's weird to me that they basically are saying, like, that's enough. Like, we're not going to compete for a Super Bowl. They're hosting the Super Bowl at Levi's. They cannot. Tom, don't look at me like that.
I'm sorry, Ashley. It's just I know where you're coming from, and the problem is that
Super Bowl this year. They cannot say that. They cannot say they're trying to win a Super Bowl. And you and I are allowed to say that, like you and I can be realists and say, like, it's not the 49ers year, whatever. But, like, how does John Lynch sell that to the team? Like, there's players that have to go out there and play on Sunday and risk their body and risk their health. And they just saw their bosses say, it's probably not. Like, why am I going to go and full sprint into another human if, like, you think the season's kind of done no matter what?
Well, I don't think that this was a proclamation by Lynch and Shanahan in the front office and the Yorks on the season. I think that this is very specific in why it happened. Lynch refuses to overpay, period, end of story. That's why this happened. Has nothing to do with their conclusions on the year or their expectations on the season. It's John Lynch does not do this. And we've seen this before with the Garoppolo stuff, where I called him Captain Ahab in search of Moby Dick, and his Moby Dick at that time was his asking price for Garoppolo, which the league refused to meet and laughed at him about. We're in the same thing now. We are in a seller's market deadline where the league said, you will overpay or you will get Jack. And Lynch said, okay, Jack. And that's what happened. The reason there's nothing is because of Lynch's mindset only. It's what he refuses to do. I will not, would not, will never overpay, period. That's why they got nothing. John Lynch.
The Cowboys, they traded for Williams. Do you think that was an overpay? And
it was an overpay, but it's worth it because you're getting Quinnen Williams.
Yeah, like,
and after you got McCaffrey, shouldn't you be considering that that's the way you can succeed? Is that if we bundle picks and get a player we know is great, and in the case of Quinnen Williams, an All-Pro when he played for Saleh, we know this guy can succeed here. He's not that old. He's going to be great. Why not? No, I think they should have made that trade. And for the same reason of why the McCaffrey trade worked, you can have faith that this will too. But they weren't willing to do that. And what Dallas gave was a second in 2026 and a first in 2027. And a lot of GMs are scared of dealing their 2027 first because that's considered to be the best draft in over a decade. It might be the best draft since 2018. So a lot of teams are unwilling to give that 27 first. Dallas was not. And that's why they got Quinnen Williams. You know, the Niners can say, well, we spent all these draft picks on defensive tackles. Yeah, but you're talking about trying to address the problem. And that's where Walsh thinks in one way and Lynch and Shanahan think in another. Walsh says, I have to fix the position group now, and then I can forget about it. Yeah. Instead, the Niners are saying, we spent 3 picks, so we're not going to trade for Quinnen Williams, and we want to keep our 27 first. It's just, that would be justified if you drafted like Bill Walsh and McVay, but you don't. So who are you kidding?
First round pick? Tom, whoever they get with that first round pick, is he going to be as good as Quinnen Williams?
No.
I mean, their first round pick right now wasn't
And that's a
good,
huge
and then
need.
he's out for the year. Like,
Right.
that's like
if you
they're
trade for
hoping
Quinn Williams, you
if they
solve
could get a guy as good as Quinn Williams with their first round pick, it would be like the biggest success in franchise history since Nick Bosa, who was, a guaranteed.
Right. You're adding proven talent. And the only thing you've proven in the draft is you can't get it right. So why are you hoarding picks when you're this bad at drafting? It doesn't make any sense. Right. Millie Mill has exactly right. And they've already seen success with it. Is the other frustration is that you traded for Trent Williams, you traded for Christian McCaffrey, who were two of the best players in your team. Why won't you trade for Quinn Williams when you know he's had success with Saleh? It doesn't make any sense. That's the trade they should have made, but didn't because they overvalue the draft and they aren't accountable to themselves in terms of we're no good at drafting. We're much better off trading picks to get a guy like Quinn Williams who's going to be immediate impact for us.
Yeah.
But no, they say, well, we've already spent all these draft picks this year and we're going to wait and see if they can develop and blah, blah, blah. It's just, that's not how you run a team. This is another example of how the Niners pay a severe price for not having a real GM.
Yeah. I feel like in these conversations, I've tried to, in the past with you, stand up a little bit more for John Lynch, but to me, it's so not strategic. You're so not self-aware. Like, your job as a GM isn't to, make everyone feel good and say the right thing. It's to be realistic about who you are and what you're successful with, where your areas of weaknesses, what areas you're good at, and go from there. And I just don't understand the total lack of awareness that they would have to have in order to be like, well, we can't give up that. What in your 8-year history shows you that you shouldn't give up that pick to go get a guy who's proven to be better? Because like you said, the two best players on, arguably top 5 players on your team are Trent and Christian. They're also team captains. They're hard workers. Like, those are especially right now, health-wise,
they're foundational pieces of the team. And so part of this is team building is also a weakness of this regime, is that you don't know how to say, we need to get a high impact player who can be a foundation for us on one side of the ball. Quinn Williams would be a foundational piece because then you've got the interior, the middle of the defense. If you stack, yeah, and what a lot of NFL people will tell you is the value of having a great defensive spine. And that means straight up the middle, defensive tackle, linebacker, safety, DB. If the Niners got Quinn Williams, they would have that. And you have to know that as a GM, that's an integral part of building a winner. Because part of the problem that they're going to have going forward is not only are you going to need to rebuild the team, you're going to need to replace the stars. You're going to need to replace the core. You need to build a new core. Or you need to complement the core so that it can extend and compete for a Super Bowl within the next 2 to 3 years. Quinn Williams could have done the latter. So, I'm frustrated that he was available and they didn't get him, even though Saleh knows better than anybody what Quinn Williams would have meant for his team.
Yeah. I do you think that Saleh, this is pure speculation, but do you think that there was some sort of, that we're completely guessing. But I'm just curious, is this something where Saleh and Kyle said, okay, we're okay with who we got. We're going to go as far as we can. We have an easy schedule. We're dealing with lots of injuries, but we'll try to work around it and we're okay with that? Or do you think Kyle and Saleh were advocating to go make some trades to help bolster both sides of the football, and maybe it was from ownership?
I don't think so. I don't think ownership plays a role in this. They would have if they had traded for, say, Trey Hendrickson, because then you have to commit to paying him an absolute fortune next year because he's an upcoming free agent. So the Yorks would have to be involved then. Lynch won a Super Bowl as a player with a dominant D-line. Why not prioritize that? Well, he is. That's his blueprint for defense is I want a front four that can create pressure on its own without any blitzing help. Lynch has always advocated that. That's how he's drafted. Harry Balzac in the Quinn says, yeah, because Quinn Williams held the Jets compete for a Super Bowl. That's the Jets. If you put Quinn Williams on this team, could they compete for a Super Bowl healthy? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the point. It's not Quinn Williams and the Jets were failures. It's Quinn Williams with Saleh on the Niners contender.
I think Robert Saleh himself has came out and said that if he could have the 49ers offense when he was the coach of the Jets, that they would have gone much farther.
Probably so.
Just the fact, not even scoring wise, like finally against the Giants, the 49ers actually scored some points on the offense. But I'm not even talking about that. Even if you go kind of by their average, which is around only 20 points, just the fact that sometimes the offense can play keep away. Yes, I definitely think that
you get complimentary football benefits. Right.
Yeah, Quinn Williams on the 49ers defense with the 49ers offense, like all of those pieces together.
Everything combined. Much more right. Yeah, and Harry says the Jets were loaded last year until their quarterback went down. So, a team with that at quarterback that they had last year isn't going to win anything and didn't. So we'll see. But still, all this comes down to is, okay, they made their decisions. Now they have to live with it. And just, okay, what are the implications going forward? But I would caution that you don't say they gave up on the team. They don't think they can win. No, this is John Lynch being himself, being true to his mindset, which is, I will not overpay. And that's why they did nothing. It's Lynch.
It's good for you to say that, because I will say, like, my reaction to this was kind of, the 49ers don't believe that they could go far in the playoffs, and they're giving up.
Yeah, I don't think that's it.
If you're a player, how do you go out there if you feel like your bosses don't believe in you long term? But
I don't think this is about belief. And I would expect that Shanahan and Lynch will go into the locker room and give them a rallying speech about us against the world or something like that, where they'll just say, we are who we are. We've won games nobody expects us to win because we're injured beyond belief, and we still win those games because we've got heart, we've got character. Next man up, go win. And the team will be motivated, and they'll do fine. But it's still frustrating that you give the effort you do, you play through the injuries the way they have, you get to 6-3, and you don't get any help at the deadline because John Lynch refuses to overpay. That's tough. It's hard to take.
Where does this leave the 49ers compared to the rest of the NFC, compared to the rest of the NFL? Like I said, I feel like going into this trade deadline, it's true that the 49ers have suffered an immense amount of injuries, and maybe in other years you would think the good teams are so much better, it's just not worth it to kind of trade away assets and go when you're going to lose no matter what. I think one of the reasons I was most surprised is because all around the NFL right now, there's no excellent team. A lot of teams are in the mix. And so I felt like just a couple moves could put the 49ers in the top. They are 6-3. Other teams in the NFC and around the league have made some big moves. We just talked about Quincy Williams going to the Cowboys. Jets had a whole, sale fire at the deadline. What do you think? Do you think that this brings the 49ers down in their division?
Yeah, because Seattle made a great move today where they got Rashid Shaheed from New Orleans. That gives them a deep threat they didn't have.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of pressure off of JSN, and it forces the defense to react to the deep threat, which opens up their running game. So a lot of benefits for the Seahawks in what they did today. That was a very smart move for them.
Not to interrupt you, but the Seahawks Sam Darnold and the Seahawks looked so dominant.
They look good.
Their defense, I know they lost to the 49ers earlier this year, but they look like a whole different defense right now. And I feel like all the way since last year, you were kind of saying, like, wait till these pieces start to mesh together, and the coaching and everything works out. And we're starting to see that. They're
a very good team.
Damn good right now.
Yeah. If they can stay healthy for the rest of the year, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the playoffs. They can beat anybody in the league. They're that good. And so that was a great move for them. Rashid Shaheed is exactly what they needed. Really smart move by them. And then the Rams got Roger McCreary, the DB from Tennessee. I like his game. I liked him in the draft. I think he'll help them. Because part of the reason the Niners won that game in LA was their DBs were bad. McCreary upgrades them in an area that they needed help in. So I think that's another move that's going to create some distance between the Niners and the division. Is that Seattle made a great move, the Rams made a good move, the Niners made no move, and so we'll see how that all plays out starting this weekend.
Yeah. Do you anticipate that this will be a loss? I know we're bouncing around because the majority of our topics are going to be about the trade. So we'll do a little Rams talk right now. How do you feel about this upcoming game?
Yeah, I don't really like it as far as the Niners. I think that the Rams are going to be fired up to get payback on that loss because it was a couple of plays that caused them to lose. An incredible play by Alfred Collins at the goal line.
Yeah.
But that's not something that's not winning a game by scheming up or matchups. That's just a player making a phenomenal play at right place, right time, exactly what the team needed to win. So for the Rams, they can say that we should have beaten those guys last time and we lost on a fluke. I don't think it was a fluke, but I think that's what they're telling themselves. And they're going to come up here to Santa Clara and they're going to be motivated. They're going to be ready. And there's a lot of people in the Rams that are playing really well right now, especially Stafford.
Playing really well right now. Yeah. Stafford looks great. Their offense is humming. Their defense is getting better. I think since their last matchup, the Niners, I mean, this is just terrible. They've only gotten more and more injured, where I feel like the Rams have started kind of firing on all cylinders. We have a lot of comments saying that 49ers are going to beat the Rams. My prediction is not that, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think the Rams will win just sheerly on Stafford playing this well, on the Niners not having Fred, and on the Rams looking for payback.
Stafford looks excellent right now. I saw an interesting conversation that kind of said, like, it sucks that he went to the Rams so late in his career, because you look at guys like Sam Darnold, who's kind of having this career resurgence, and he's only 27. Like, and by the way, like, maybe he'll go to the playoffs and shit the bed again, and he's not actually all that great. But it's also possible that he had one bad playoff performance, and that it's not a fluke that for the last 2 years when he's been under like competent organizations, he's played well. And it's just kind of interesting with Matthew Stafford playing kind of like at a Hall of Fame level the last couple of years, but because it happened so late in his career, I don't know if it really rewrites history in the same way. You can tell how little I was paying attention because I didn't realize Tom left. Hi, Tom.
It's my internet hamsters got tired, and so
if that happens again, just I want everyone to know it's on me. We started the show a little bit late, and usually for Tom's internet, we try to start around 3. So
yeah,
I appreciate you sticking out with me, Tom. I just went on a tangent about how I thought Stafford was really good, and that potentially if he would have gone to a more competent organization earlier, could he be in like the Aaron Rodgers conversation or closer to that than what he is? But that doesn't have to do with 49ers.
But for Stafford, it was sort of just the planets aligning. He goes to play for McVay. He's got great receivers around him. He's got a team that plays complementary football. It all fell together for him.
Yeah.
But Detroit, given the investment they made, they're not going to let go of him until they think they're done. So that's what it took. But it also helped Detroit build into the team that they've become. So it worked out for both sides.
For sure. I want to really quickly read the super chat. If you trust Darnold, then you're silly. I would say I'm not. I can see where you're coming from, because when Darnold shit the bed in the playoffs last year, I thought, of course, this is Darnold. But what I'm kind of changing my tune on this. I think under, KOC with the Vikings, under Shanahan, all we've heard is that in practice and in games, Sam Darnold can throw the football like a stud, that he's, a hell of a player, a hell of a teammate. I don't know. A lot of, we got to remember, like, Peyton Manning had a lot of really bad playoff performances. Like a lot of these Hall of Fame, maybe aside from like literally Tom Brady, most look at Lamar Jackson, who's I'm not, by the way, saying that Sam Darnold is on this level, but I'm saying there's good quarterbacks that have bad playoff performances. Yeah. And I think that the Seahawks will make the playoffs this year, and I'm excited to see how it looks. If he continues to shit the bed in the playoffs, then he's a regular season warrior, and that's him. But I don't have him written off yet.
Yeah, I think that you can't, but I think that Tommy is correct that you can't necessarily trust Darnold. He's going to have to prove it. But is he capable of proving it based on what we've seen recently? Yeah. And making the trade for Shaheed will help Darnold most because there's a deep threat. But beyond that, the deep threat forces the defense to back up, and that helps the running game get a lot better. And that's what Seattle and Darnold specifically needs. So I think it would help.
Hearing you say that though, Tom, because I'm like, why are the Seahawks getting better and the Niners aren't? Like,
because they've got a GM and we don't.
The 49ers need speed on offense. The 49ers need defensive reinforcements. And the freaking Seahawks are over here making moves and the 49ers are twiddling their thumbs. The Super Bowl is at Levi's. Not
they don't care. They don't care about that. Yeah. If you asked Lynch and Shanahan, do you care that the Super Bowl's at Levi's? No. Yorks? No. What the Yorks care about is, are we going to get a ton of money from people coming to Levi's? Yeah. Is that what the Yorks want? Yeah. So that's the way it's going to break down. It's just they don't care. They don't care.
They get more money and more money long term if they were in the
by winning, sure. But does it matter that the game is at Levi's? If you polled them and asked them to be honest about it, I don't think they would care. I really don't.
Yeah.
The Yorks would. The team wouldn't. Lynch wouldn't. But again, so why is Seattle doing this and the Niners aren't? Because the Niners don't have a true general manager who knows how to build a team and knows what needs to be done, especially in moments like this at the deadline. Seattle does. And look where the Seahawks are going. That doesn't guarantee playoff success, though. Darnold is going to have to prove it. So is Mike McDonald. So is their defense. But right now, anyway, all the Pistons are firing and the Seahawks look good. We'll see how they finish the season out.
The move that the Rams made again, really quickly?
They got Roger McCurry, the DB from Tennessee.
Okay.
And that's a clear upgrade for them.
Do you think he'll play this week against the Niners?
I would expect so, yeah.
Do you think Ricky Pearsall will play this week with the 49ers?
I'm not convinced of that. I think that there's something more serious going on with Ricky, and I don't know why they haven't put him on IR. I don't understand that because he's been missing for a long time now. But you go back to that pick and you say, what were we saying at the time that pick was made? They just took a 24-year-old rookie, and now we've got a banged up 25-year-old rookie.
It's bad.
And, when's he going to put it together? I mean, part of the problem in taking an older pick.
We can't trade away our draft picks, though. We can't trade. Why would you go out and get Quincy Williams when you could go get Ricky Pearsall, who's like 27 and played 10 games?
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm with you. Yeah. If they had taken Frazier instead of Pearsall, they'd be in a much better place right now. But this, again, I'm a broken record on this, but it's still true. This is the price of no real GM. That's the major stumbling block for this franchise, is that you need an outside GM who really knows what he's doing in evaluating talent and building a team. The Niners don't have either one of those things, and that's why they fail. They still get to a point of great success. I mean, they built a great team that went to the Super Bowl twice, but because they didn't build the team correctly, they failed in both of those games because the offensive line had too big a mismatch. And so here we are. We're back on that again, climbing the mountain one more time. But until the offensive line is dealt with, they're still not going to win.
Are you surprised that the 49ers did not trade away Juwan Jennings with the fact that he's seemingly been upset with the front office?
A little bit, but at the same time, that's overridden by Kyle really values his toys. Mm-hmm. Kyle hates to give up a toy. And that's why he bursts into the room saying, don't trade Ayuk, and cancels the trade to Pittsburgh that would have solved the offensive line.
Yeah, wouldn't trade Debo when Debo wanted the trade.
Right. And Juwan is the same thing.
Earlier this offseason when they could have.
Right. And so here it is again. It's, we want to trade one of your toys. No. You can't trade one of my toys. Do you ever play with it? Sometimes. So it's just, it's another, it's just, that's how dysfunctional these guys are when it comes to personnel moves and team building. And that's what happens when your offensive coordinator and head coach is also the de facto GM, is that you get players that Kyle values and uses and says, you can't trade this guy, even if he's being a cancer.
Badass joined a little bit late, but we did discuss this. I think that there's absolutely no excuse because as we've discussed, the 49ers can't draft for shit. So whatever it would have taken to go get a guy would have been worth it because whoever they're going to draft with that pick is not going to be as good as the proven talent. But Tom, he would say that the 49ers reasoning, not that he supports this, is that you would have had to overpay for one of these players. And when John Lynch gets stuck to what he's willing to give up, he's not willing to go above that number.
Exactly. Mr. Corey asked, what about Walter Nolan over Michael Williams? I sung the praises of Walter Nolan with Ashley.
Yes.
Before that draft, I loved Walter Nolan.
Yeah.
So
this was like Tom's. If you read all of Tom's stuff leading up to the draft, you heard a lot about Walter Nolan for a long time. Now, I think that the reason, and maybe Tom, you discussed this back then in your articles, was that Walter Nolan wasn't used to playing in the system that the 49ers play in. But I think what a good GM would do is say, hey, this is going to be a really talented player. Make it work, coaches. Hey, Kyle, we know you love your system. You love your scheme. This is a freak athlete that's going to be a game changer. Let's go on this versus trying to get this puzzle piece that we can shove in here that's less, reliable, but knows your system. Why don't you do what, coaching? Some people might, if you were to define coaching, you might define it as teaching. But for some reason, the 49ers don't like that. They like people who already know their shit.
They want fits. They want system fits. And what you need to do, and this is something that Walsh and McVay always advocated, playmakers. You need to look at guys that make plays based on talent and skill, especially pass rushers. Do they have the pass rush arsenal to succeed in the league? Nolan does, and he's got the physical tools to back it up. He still needs to add to that arsenal, but he's got moves now. Michael doesn't. Michael is just a great ball of clay and really young. And so they're hoping that Michael develops into Eric Armstead, and that they think that because he's only 21 now, he will develop more in his body. He'll get even bigger, and he'll be the Armstead-style defensive tackle that moved from defensive end to inside and became a great interior pass rusher. But Nolan is further ahead of Michael in terms of interior pass rushing ability. So is what it is. It's just, I value the skill. I value the skill set. I'm big on skill sets, always have been. Nolan had a better skill set. Michael was younger and has great upside potential, but you have to develop a lot, and it's going to take a while. I think that in 3 years, Michael will be what they want him to be. He'll be Eric Armstead 2 inside only. He'll be a defensive tackle. He will no longer be an edge. I think that's their plan for him.
We talked about this around and during the draft. It's not that Michael is a bad piece. He if he develops to what he could be, which my players got to him for his ACL. But it's not necessarily it's a bad pick. It's just that it's not a pick for now. Right. And the 49ers have struggled throughout Kyle Shanahan's tenure, going back to the we've had, comments talking about the draft and stuff, going back to the Trey Lance pick and all the assets they gave up for that, with not knowing, are you playing to win right now? Or are you rebuilding? Are you trying to draft for the future? Are you going all in? Is it quest for 6 right now? Like, is it about the core? Is it because the issue with drafting a guy who you are aware isn't going to be his best self until year 3 is that you didn't get rid of Trent Williams. You didn't get rid of Kittle. You didn't get rid of Juwan Jennings. The fact that you paid those players and kept those players who are aging veterans who need to win now shows me, okay, I want to go all in. But then in the draft, instead of making moves to go all in, you're making moves for the future. And it's not that individually these things are wrong. It's that they don't go together. And the 49ers do not have a clear strategy of when and how they're trying to win.
Yeah, there's no alignment.
Yeah.
You've got to say, okay, we've got an older aging core that's in sunset. They've got 2 to 3 years left, maybe. We've got a draft where we've got these early picks. We need to take now players who fit within that 2 to 3 year window. If you don't, if you're saying, well, we want this guy to be great in 3 years, okay, but then who's the team around that guy? You have to completely rebuild it. So he's going to be part of your next core when it's the 11th pick. Yeah. If I'm making the 11th pick, I want a guy that can be dominant immediately. They're not. And so 2 of their first 3 picks were projects, Michael and the linebacker that they never play.
Yeah.
And so, and plus you got Jordan James, who they never play either. So it's just, where's the strategic alignment on this team? They all need to be on the same page as far as when you want these guys to compete. Instead, it's, well, for this guy, we'll think he'll be great in 3 years, and that's a good thing. Okay. But then you've got 10 different islands of this guy in 3 years, that guy in 1 year, this guy maybe, that guy no. This team, these core players, they got 2 to 3 years left. So, yeah, as your dad says, so we're going to wait for another 3 years until Michael is good. What happens before then?
Yeah.
The team just keeps waiting on him while, here's your first round pick, 11th overall, and you got to wait 3 years? No.
By that time, by the way, Trent Williams is
Pearsall.
40.
Yeah, and Trent's 37.
He's going to be every year with George Kittle that you get that he's able to be on the field. You need to be thankful for and playing, utilizing every bit of that. Or by the way, or you need to, and this, I know a lot of fans won't like this, or you need to trade him. And this is what you're saying is that
you got to pick one.
Strategies are not aligned. You're either going, we're so grateful that we have Chris McCaffrey on the field. We have George Kittle. We have, Trent Williams. These are older guys that might not be playing and definitely won't be playing at the top of their ability, but might not honestly be playing even at all in 3 years. So what are you doing? You're either building a team for right now or sell these guys and utilize that to get the future draft picks to win in 3 years. Do one or the other. But doing both leaves you with this horribly disjointed team where you don't have any backups or any depth when your guys get injured, but your guys are going to get injured because they're older veterans. And it ends up being so frustrating for fans who see that there are players on this team. They are Super Bowl level right now. And then it's not fair, by the way, to the young guys, because there's all these podcasts, people or journalists that are going, what's up with Michael? This is pre-ACL, but why can't he rush the passer? And that frustration makes sense because we're, as fans, going, we drafted you and now we don't have a guy to rush the passer. You need to do that. But from Michael's perspective, that's not fair. He was not supposed to be able to do that this year.
No.
And it's John Lynch or Kyle Shanahan, both of them together, the pseudo GM joinment of them is those two created that position for Michael, for the fans, for the disappointment of this team.
Well, what they're doing now is indefensible. You've got an aging core that still has some great, truly great players, and you're drafting guys as 3-year projects. What are you doing? It's your trick-or-treating on the freeway. Stop it. Pick a lane, commit to it, and say, we are going to be a Super Bowl contender in 2026, and everything we do is going to be about that.
Yeah.
No, they want to have it both ways. We've got this aging core who might be able to go, and then after they're done, then we'll have these new guys after 3 years, and they'll be really good. And that way we'll continue to be good. No, when you win a Super Bowl championship, you are aligned. And that's what the Niners were. They were aligned.
Tom, aren't the Warriors also in the Bay
Warriors
Area?
did the exact same mistake. They tried to have it both ways and failed.
Yeah, it got their GM fired. Like, why are the 49ers not looking at this? Like, the Warriors are in the same, Bay Area championship level where they have And they just saw this play out with the Warriors. They saw it fail miserably. It tore apart their team. It split the fan base, and their GM got fired. That leads me to my next question that is kind of being brought up by me viewing these comments. They're doing a lot of drafting for the future right now, which I don't agree with. If they, let's say they're a first round playoff exit, what happens with Kyle Shanahan? What happens with John Lynch? And by the way, maybe also separately, what would you like to happen? Because what will happen and what we want to happen is probably different.
Well, what will happen, we've already had this hinted at by Matt Mayoko of NBC Sports Bay Area. He has said Kyle has this job as long as he wants it. There's nothing in the foreseeable future that would indicate any exit for Kyle Shanahan. He's one of the top coaches in the league. He might be coach of the year this year, etc. But I think that there's still a possibility that Lynch can move on if they think that the team is making too many mistakes in personnel. And they could then say, all right, we need to hire somebody else, or more likely, they hire from within and they get Tariq Ahmad, RJ Gillen, one of those guys, or both of them, basically running things, but with Kyle still having GM control over personnel. So I think that that's what we're looking at, is that if anybody's on the hot seat, it's Lynch, and it will depend on how the team does in terms of the personnel moves going forward. I think that they could bump Lynch up. They could make him team president, and then they could hire Ahmad as the general manager, and it would be kind of like the Adam Peters relationship, similar thing, but everybody bumps up one. And I think that's the most likely outcome, is that Kyle would remain as the de facto GM, making final personnel calls when he sees fit, and the front office then makes its moves whatever it determines it wants to do. But in likelihood, Lynch is either fired and goes to TV, or he gets bumped up as team president with somebody new as the GM.
Yeah, that's an interesting, I guess, like third option loophole that I didn't think about, is they can phrase it kind of to preserve his ego and whatever, as like, sure, oh no, we're promoting him. But really but my thing is, and you kind of said this in your response, they would, for me to be happy, they would have to, in addition to whether it's promoting Lynch and hiring a new GM, whatever, or just letting him go in general and bringing in a new GM, they'd have to take some of that power away from Kyle. Because I don't think it's fair to put it all on Lynch, although
it's not.
Because if they just bring in a new guy, but Kyle can still veto and have the final say, then to me, nothing really changes. You'd have to hire a strong GM. Like when you think about the Eagles and Howie Roseman, when you think about the Chiefs, who have Andy Reid, like their GM is a strong GM separate from their coach. And I think the 49ers would need to do something like that for me to feel like
me too,
a significant change.
Yeah, I'm with you all the way. And in Kansas City's case, Brett Veach had to sell Andy Reid on Mahomes. Veach is why they drafted Mahomes. He's the guy that made that happen. That's the power of a GM. So if I had my magic wand and I got to rule the Niners for a day, Kyle, we think you're one of the best coaches in the league, a great OC, and you can advise on personnel.
Yeah, you can give your
no longer. Yeah, you do not have final say. Period. End of story. John, thank you very much. We're either going to make you team president, or you can go to Amazon for a fortune. You decide what you want. Either way, we'll roll with it and back you up. But we're going to hire a new outside general manager to build the team and evaluate the talent. As I've written before in my pieces in the past, Ray Agnew is the assistant GM in Detroit. He's learned great talent evaluation from, Brad Holmes, one of the best GMs in the league, and he knows how to build teams. That's the guy I would hire. But whether he'll be available at the time the Niners come to some kind of an epiphany, who knows? But I don't think there's any chance that Kyle is going to be willing to let go of final personnel control. He is always going to say, that's mine, so is head coach, so is OC. Kyle is not going to allow a decoupling of his roles. But to me, unless that happens, they're not winning a ring.
Yeah. I just wanted to bring up Marcus Trek said that Lynch sold Kyle and Lance. I would say that might be a rumor, but no one is in these rooms and we don't know for sure. Also, I tend to disagree. I think John Lynch's ideal scenario for this was he wanted Jimmy Garoppolo to stay the guy, because I think Jimmy Garoppolo and that trade was more of John Lynch's decision, and I agree that Kyle probably liked Mac Jones, and we're seeing why, but I would say you're not in the room, and anything you're hearing on 49ers Twitter,
none of us are. All of us are reacting to rumors. The rumor that I've heard is the person that sold Kyle and Lance was Mike Shanahan, who was at all those workouts. And Kyle is going to listen to his dad over anybody else.
Yeah.
In the chat,
really quick. That goes back to not having a super strong GM.
Yeah.
John Lynch was not there until the end. Like, he was there with Kyle, but the guy who was scouting was Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan's dad.
Right.
So if you had a real GM,
it's dysfunctional. It's dysfunctional. Steve-O, I always look for Steve-O's chats. He says 6-3. That's true. But 6-3 with any chance at a ring? No. That's what I'm about. I'm coming at this from, and I realize there's a generational split here, but to me, somebody that goes back to the Niners and the Kezar days, I started in 1970. My goal is rings only. That's all that I care about. I don't care if they've got a record. I don't care if they are 6-3 now. I don't care if they're in the Super Bowl twice if they lost. I don't care if they're in the mix year to year. York does, because that's the business plan.
That's how you make money.
Stay a contender to keep the seats filled and keep the merch rolling. All of that, sure. But what I care about most, coming from the older generation, is rings.
Yeah, my dad is.
I don't see anything that would give me any confidence in the way this team is structured in the front office to think they're going to win a ring anytime soon. I don't.
Tom, I'm sorry that I'm distracted. There's about 200 turkeys coming up out the window, like walking up the hill right in front of me. But the turkeys, although cool to look at, isn't what's surprising. It's that it's either a big giant cat or a coyote that is walking, not attacking, but walking with the horde of turkeys up.
So the coyote is a turkey herder.
Sorry, I got
that's bizarre.
Like, oh, look, a turkey. And then I was like, oh no. And then I was like, wait, he's not, he's just, anyways. So there's weird stuff going out the window that I was distracted by. But what I would say with your spiel on that is that my dad feels the exact same way. And I think that
we're of the older generation.
And around for kind of the cutthroatness that was going on during that time, like how there was no acceptance of second place. You guys all have the same sort of mindset.
Yeah, that's how we approach it. But I realize that there is a generational split. This is something I've written about before too. In the older generation, it's rings. That's it. Nothing else, literally. The newer generation, it's we remember the Tom Sula days. We remember the Mike Singletary days. We refuse to be the butt of the jokes of the rest of the fans of the other team. We don't want to be a punchline, and therefore it's fine with us if the Niners compete. As long as the Niners don't suck, we're good. We want a team that can also just day in, year out, be in the mix to contend. They're fine with that. They're fine with not winning rings. And that's the generational split in the fan base. That's the faithful. That's the dividing line. Everybody that's old says rings or forget it, period. And contention is fine with me. And you're never going to bridge that gap. Those two were permanent schism in this fan base. Yeah.
I think I try to I want to enjoy each season, even if they don't win a Super Bowl or whatever. But I think the part that frustrates me the most isn't like if you go all in, you try your hardest, you try your best, you have a solid plan, and you attempt to execute it to the best of your ability, and you fall short. I'm going to be disappointed. I'm going to be frustrated, but I'm going to respect the season, and I'm going to feel good about being a fan because my team tried. Sure. I think what I don't like is and this goes back to the off season, is feeling like you're kind of half-assing the season before it even starts. when they were talking about saving money, when they didn't go out and make a move for an offensive lineman, either draft wise or in free agency wise, right now not doing anything at the trade deadline, which by the way, like my realistic brain goes, even if they make a trade, are they going to make a trade that replaces all the guys that they've lost? Probably not. Is it worth it? Who knows? And if they're going to be a playoff exit anyways, maybe keep your assets. Like I have that realistic part of my brain. But I want a team that believes that they're like, that's not okay with that. Like, I don't want a team that wants to settle. I don't want a team that wants to save money. I don't, because like,
well, that's true, but that's the Yorks though.
Yeah, you want me to pay for like our season tickets going down? Or like is the food at the stadium going down? No. So why do I need to buy in to your plan that like you can't go out in year 8, year 9 and get an offensive lineman to protect your quarterback? Like right now we're talking about the second string quarterback, and this is like the 4th second string quarterback that people have hyped up under Kyle Shanahan, because every time he has a starter, that starter gets hurt. Why? Because they've never prioritized the offensive line. Like a lot of this stuff that I get frustrated with isn't necessarily like, oh, you didn't win a Super Bowl. It's that you didn't put your best effort out there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it's you didn't build the team correctly to have its best chance at success. And that's the thing. You can take joy in a successful year and say they did well this year. They played well. They played hard. They played with heart and character. They were a fun team to watch. But what you also want to see concurrent with that is you want to see a team in its front office and its decision-making and personnel that knows what it's doing. And far too often we see examples of they don't. And here's this deadline. Nothing. Why? Because Lynch is completely, utterly adamant on his asking price or else mindset.
Yeah.
And that can hold this team back. And that's the kind of thing you need to look at, especially from the Yorks perspective of why doesn't this team win a ring, and identify those weaknesses and come up with a solution. And I think if they did, they would say, okay, number one, we need to fire our strength and conditioning people and redo our practices.
Stop promoting from within.
So that we can figure out why we're always hurt and why we're always getting hurt. And 2, we need a real GM on the outside that knows how to build a team and that can evaluate talent on his own without the help of anyone else. We need somebody that really knows the talent. Because part of the thing that I think happens with Lynch in the draft is he will advocate and say, okay, who do you guys like? Who do you guys like? As opposed to, this is my vision of who's good. I don't think Lynch contributes that. And I think it hurts them, is that he's basically canvassing the room for ideas as opposed to having his own vision of who's the best player. I think that's missing in their GM, and that's something you need. It's part of why I think that they need to get Agnew from Detroit as one example. There are others who truly knows evaluating talent. That's the key skill in all of this. I don't think Lynch has that skill.
What trades has John Lynch won?
He wants, in the deadline, he wants a trade where he only gives up a 4th-round pick.
No,
and there's reports that say that.
What trade has John Lynch won? I can't think of one.
Well, they traded for Trent Williams. They traded for
Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, he's made good trades.
But they're not.
But what they need to learn from is we packaged picks to get a proven talent, high impact player. They had their chance to do that in this deadline with Quinn and Williams, and they chose not to.
So I don't know. I disagree with the sentiment of that comment, because he's won those, but why are they not, like, why would you not learn from that? Okay, go out and do that again then. If that's your pathway to success, to me, that makes you a bad GM. If you can't self-reflect on what you're good at as a team and what you're bad at as a team and move accordingly, then okay, we need a different GM who can be self-aware. Your job shouldn't be to be the spokesman for the 49ers. It should be to have a realistic view of the 49ers in the front office and what they need to win. Not to talk well. But
right. Well, but he was hired in part to be the the Kyle translator, because John is very smooth in front of the camera, and so he does. There are good things that John Lynch does. He can still be a guy of high integrity, a person that puts a great face on things. I admire John Lynch. I think he's a great player and a good person, and I like that aspect of it. But as a GM, I don't think he's got talent evaluation skills, and I think that they need somebody that's better at team building and someone that really knows the talent of the league, not just the guys in the league, but also who you're drafting. I think that he's weak in that area, and they need to address it. But will they? Nah, the Yorks are only interested in if you make the cash register ring, we're good. And with this pairing of Lynch and Shanahan, they've proven that they can be consistent contenders, and that's what feeds the York business model. And so they're satisfied. They're sated. They can say quest for 6, but do they really mean it? No. Are they really taking actions to deal with addressing the weaknesses to get the 6th ring? They're not. They're fine with the status quo. Everybody is. And so you get the status quo result. You get to Super Bowls and lose.
Do you think that this non-move at the trade deadline has any implications for the future draft coming up next year?
Yeah, I do. It's if they are thinking about, and I wrote this in an article that's up now on Twitter, is are you thinking that maybe we need to keep these picks because we're going to make a trade up? And you look at the Niners and say they need a running back, they need a tight end, they need a receiver. And there's high impact players in the top 15 to 20 who fit that, but you have to trade up for all of them. The Niners right now are slotted at 22. The way that they end the year, they're probably either 11-6 or 10-7. So they might drop down a few more slots than that. And so the best running back in this draft is Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame. He's the only first round back. The best tight end is Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon. He's the only tight end. And so those are guys where you make the move and say, we're going to get an impact player, because it's not just that they need to replace guys and fill in the roster with starters. They need to replace the core itself. And that's why you need high impact players. You have to identify who those are and go get them. So Love at Notre Dame is the back to replace McCaffrey could be one move, and then you move Christian to wide receiver and make him a slot receiver. And you look at Kittle and you say he's missed a lot of games. He's getting older, and he's beaten down now. He's given his heart and soul to this team, and he's paid a physical toll. We need his replacement. They've looked at tight ends over the last couple of years, and they failed to get one. Here's Sadiq, great run blocker and a playmaker as a receiver. That's who you want. They need and want a two-way tight end. There he is, but he's projected to go anywhere from 14 to 19. That's too high for where they would pick, so they would need to move up. So it's possible, even if it doesn't sound plausible, that they are hoarding picks because they're planning on moving up in the first. That's a possibility. Okay. So that's one thing. And I would look at Love and Sadiq as the possibilities there. There's also two great receivers in this draft, Tyson from ASU, Tate from Ohio State. Those guys can really play. But I think that there's a lot of good receivers that are height with speed that are later in the draft that you can get in the second, the third, even the fourth. So you have to project who's available where and figure it out. But I think that if they are planning, and who knows if they are, if they're planning to trade up, that could be part of the reason why they didn't give picks now, because they want to have all those picks in place so they can move up to get a Jeremiah Love or a Kenyon Sadiq. That's a possibility. I don't have any information knowing if they do or not, but I'm just speculating that's an option. They have to address the O-line. Yes, they do. But we have no proof that they're willing to take a tackle. They haven't taken a tackle in the first since McGlinchey. That's 2018. They didn't attend the BYU-Utah game to even scout Caleb Lomu, who would be the best tackle available at their pick, which tells me they're not looking to tackle yet again. I think that they will look at offensive line in the second, probably a center, maybe a guard. They could also look to trade down from where they are in the first and try to add some additional pieces, and then they could take an offensive lineman late in the first. But I think that if they truly want to replace the core, what they're going to have to do is look at Love or more likely Sadiq in a trade up. I think Sadiq would really help them, and they need to get that young tight end to replace Kittle.
Yeah. Last topic for the show. During or after the game, and then Monday during his press phone call, Kyle Shanahan gave an update on Brock Purdy's injury. And when asked if Brock Purdy, will be available against the Rams, he didn't say no, but he didn't say yes. And he did hint that Brock Purdy might not be healthy for the remainder of the year. And he said that Brock Purdy will return when he's fully healthy and can play like Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy himself, before he aggravated his injury when they made him play, he was asked, hey, are you going to return this week? And he said, well, I'm not sure. And then talking in the third person said, I don't want to go back out there until I can play like Brock. So that was, 6 weeks ago now. He went out there, shit the bed, didn't play like Brock, he would say, came back or, re-injured himself. And it's been Mac Jones ever since. One, are you shocked that the turf toe could be a season-long injury? And two, what does it mean to play like Brock? Because when I look at Brock's play over his most recent 10 games, it's not a super high level of play. But I assume when they're saying that, maybe they're talking about like 2023 Brock Purdy?
Yeah, they are. And they're hoping that Brock can return to that. I wrote a piece a couple days ago about this. There's a study that was made by Johns Hopkins about athletes with turf toe. And they said that only in 2% of the cases would you actually have surgery. And that's if you have a severe tear. Grade 3, it's the worst you can have. Plus joint damage, bone damage, instability problems, a lot of things that are really severe. And according to the reports, Brock doesn't have it to that extent. And that would mean, therefore, that Brock does not have surgery. And the Johns Hopkins report then said there's a 3-phase process you can go through in rehab, and it can take up to 10 weeks. And so if we apply those 10 weeks from Jacksonville, that means that Brock could go through that process and then be ready after the bye week. And so he could play against Tennessee in week 15. But at that point, if you've already played all those games with Mac Jones, you want to maintain the continuity. And I think you're better off just telling Brock, just take all the time you need and become the Brock Purdy that we know from 2023 and get that person back on the field next season. I think that that's a possibility. But the other concern that stems out of the Johns Hopkins study is they said, even for the players that have a problem but not a big enough problem for surgery, they only have a 70% success rate of returning to past performance, which means there's a 30% chance you don't. And that's pretty high, if you ask me. And if that's the case for Brock, you never get 2023 again. That's a possibility. And so the Niners are going to have to evaluate Brock very carefully, very closely.
Yes.
It's a really tough injury to deal with. And I feel for him that you're stuck. It's you know that this is an injury, but it can't have surgery. But at the same time, if you hit it wrong, it can really hurt, and it throws off all of your mechanics, your accuracy, your timing, your plant foot, everything. And so for Brock, it's just he's in a rock and a hard place, and he has to just wait it out and see after those 10 weeks, where are you? Can you get back to who you were, to that 70% that go to past performance, or are you in the 30% group instead? They need to find that out. And the only way you do is by sitting Brock for those 10 weeks.
Something that I don't understand is Nirav Pandya. A lot of people follow him on Twitter. He talks about the Warriors. He talks about the 49ers. He's a Bay Area doctor. He was on KMBR, and similar to what you're saying that they talked about in the John Hopkins stuff, he said that with turf toe, you should be elevating it, laying off of it in a walking boot unless it's like a minor strain, but for anything above a grade 1, so grade 2, grade 3, whatever, you should be not utilizing it at all for 6 to 10 weeks, which is what you're saying. Why are the 49ers, one, they're practicing Brock. Like, there's videos every week of him practicing. They ruled him day to day all last week, meaning they were pushing him to do even, more, not pushing him like too much, but like testing what he could do. AKA he's out there running, throwing the ball, doing footwork, all that. And they even flew him across the country, which flying increases inflammation in your body.
Right.
They're making the wrong moves. If they do want him to come back, if they would have just sat him and had him elevate his leg from the moment he got injured, even if they waited the most conservative amount of time, he'd be like almost back by now. But instead, it seems like week to week, he's getting pushed back because he keeps almost re-aggravating it.
Why are the Niners always injured every year?
Yeah.
Here's part of why. Terrible process. And as the doctor points out, you need a walking boot. You need somebody that's has his foot elevated and doesn't put pressure on it. And the Niners are working him out. Why? Because Kyle doesn't want to have any possibility, any risk
of Adrian Martinez,
of having to play Adrian Martinez. So it's when Kyle was asked, what's your top skill? Staying hired. And he said that immediately. That dictates everything that we know about Kyle and why he makes the decisions he does. If he knows that if he has to play Adrian Martinez, he loses. He knows if he loses, there's a risk of losing his job. So what does he do? He works out Brock to make sure that Brock can be the second-round quarterback, the backup QB. Yeah, it's all it's nothing today on the trade deadline was all about Lynch's mindset. Brock practicing, flying with the team. It's all about Kyle's mindset. Both of those are completely wrong.
Yeah,
and need to be addressed. But the Yorks aren't going to do it because they're counting their money. They're happy. And so this dysfunction continues. And as fans, that gets very frustrating when you say, this needs to be fixed and you're ignoring it. Why? And they say, look at all the money we're making. You didn't answer my question.
They would have treated Brock Purdy's injury correctly from the beginning, then he would have a better chance of being healthy sooner. And the 49ers need that because even if Mac Jones is playing okay for right now, Mac Jones could get injured because we go back to this offensive line is a problem. So even if Mac Jones does good 1 week, the next week he could be out and you could be this, close to playing or Adrian Martinez again. And by the way, to me, if the choice is lose a game with your third string quarterback, Adrian Martinez, or lose a game with your starting franchise quarterback that you just paid $200 million to, and you could risk re-injury of him and like he's out for the rest of the season or it affects this offseason, like you'd rather lose a couple games with Adrian Martinez and protect your future when you just, this is what's silly is I'm not a huge Brock person and I feel like I am thinking about treating Brock safer than the 49ers are and they're the ones that paid him. Like if you paid this guy, if you're the guy who's supposed to be the franchise guy, if he was only here for 1 more year, you want to be reckless with him, whatever. You just signed him to a deal. It's in your best interest that he's healthy, not just right now, but next year and the year after that, because you're paying him for those years. And you're risking fucking that up.
Right. But is that in the best interest of Kyle? My best skill is staying employed Shanahan. No. He wants Brock to be available. Kyle's number one priority at quarterback is never having to play Adrian Martinez. And that's why Brock practices. That's why he's rushed back out. That's why Mac Jones plays hurt. All of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then you can point back to the offensive line and say, the reason all your quarterbacks get banged up is because your offensive line's no good. And Kyle says, well, no, but that's my core philosophy. And if there's a hill that Kyle's willing to die on, it's I don't have to draft offensive linemen. I did it my way. If Kyle had a verse on I did it my way, it would talk about offensive line and the value of ignoring it. That's going to be his signature is I won a ring and I didn't spend a first-round pick on an offensive tackle. That's something Kyle would take deep pride in. And you look at that as a fan, as someone covering the team, and it just gets frustrating that why is there so many layers of dysfunction on this team? And that's one of it. Sean says, I'm bitching too much, chilling the Kyle and Lynch nonsense. What coach and GM would you want in their place? I already gave the GM, Ray Agnew, the assistant GM in Detroit. The coach, it can depend.
You're not paying attention, Sean.
The coach depends on the year.
You haven't listened.
The coach depends on the year. That could have been Ben Johnson. That could have been a number of people. I like the offensive coordinator in Tampa. I think that he's going to be a hot coaching candidate. There's a number of people. It's just who's available that year. Yeah. It's what I would want, Sean, to your question. If I had my druthers, what I would want is Kyle has nothing to say about the general manager. He doesn't have any final personnel say. Lynch is gone as GM, and they hire Ray Agnew as the GM. They did that, I would be perfectly happy and content. Yeah. I'd shut up.
I feel like you didn't listen to our stream because we, by the way, like 2 streams ago said Kyle might be coach of the year. We're not advocating for him to not be the head coach right now. We're saying that he has too much power, which if you look around at all the great organizations, their demise has kind of been giving the head coach way too much power, and he can't wear every single hat. Kyle Shanahan's own dad basically got fired for that exact same issue. So,
that's what needs to be addressed. So, Sean, go support the Bears. The last thing I care about in this troika of who runs what is coach. What I care about most is general manager, because if you don't have that right, you can't win.
Sean to know you.
That's where my focus is that Shanahan is out of his lane as GM with frontal personnel control. I would be perfectly happy with saying, Kyle, you're one of the best coaches in the league. We want you to top 5 franchise. Yeah, because they won rings in the past. Is it a top 5 franchise now? Hasn't won a ring in 30 years. There's a reason for that. There's a reason they haven't won a ring now, because the GM is too weak in building a team and evaluating talent for the team to win a ring.
Yeah.
That's the issue. So if they could excise Shanahan from GM, I'd be perfectly willing and happy to do that. I would love to keep Shanahan as coach, but he has to go as GM. So does Lynch.
I had a really good time talking with you today, Tom.
This was fun.
I'm frustrated that they didn't make a trade deadline, but they still have a chance. You know, I think Steve-O said earlier, 6-3, still have a chance to make half to their ceiling by not making another move, and that sucks. Someone said could be Reed and Mahomes.
Could we read Mahomes in terms of winning rings? Yeah, but what did it take for them to get Mahomes? A great GM who had to convince Reed on Mahomes.
It's important to have.
Is that Brett Veach, who told Reed, get out to Texas, watch this kid. He's that good. Veach made that happen. A great GM made that happen. That's what the Niners are missing.
I think that you and I have both said, like, we think Lynch is probably a good person, and it's not necessarily his fault. He wasn't a GM going into this. Like, he was hired. It's kind of like how I said it's to be disappointed that Michael couldn't rush the passer pre-ACL. But at the same time, it's like, well, he's not supposed to be good for 3 years. I feel similar with John Lynch. It's like, John Lynch, you're not, Howie Roseman, but it's like, look at Howie Roseman's career and how he became who he is. John Lynch was a TV guy. John Lynch is a great, like, if they promoted him to president or something, gave him some sort of title like that, I'd love that. But I think that they need someone who knows personnel, who studies prospects, who goes to colleges, not Mike Shanahan, not Kyle's dad, but a real GM. But anyways, I had a really good time talking with you today.
This was fun.
It'll be interesting to see how they do with the Rams. My prediction is that they lose this game just because, they were close to losing last time they played the Rams. They're way more injured now, and the Rams seem to be way hotter now. I don't know what I feel bad for Saleh. He's pulled a lot of rabbits out of the hat. Now he's losing Michael. I know Michael hasn't done a ton with getting pressure on the quarterback, but he has helped with stopping with that. Obviously they have Keon White, who they did trade for. I just thought they were going to make additional moves. When it comes to the offense, my prediction, and I saw some arguments about this in the comments. I do not think Brock is going to play. I think Kyle made it pretty clear that Brock's not going to play. It might be a soft, if you want to go conspiracy theory, maybe it's a soft benching, and if Mac Jones looked horrible, then they'll bring Brock back. But I'm honestly more inclined to think that Brock is actually really just injured, because any doctor
he is
about this has been like, if this guy did suffer this injury, which he did, and then was forced to play and is continuing. So I kind of believe that Mac not only is going to start because he's winning and playing good, and it'd be silly to take him out even if Brock was healthy, just because you don't, move off the hot hand. But also,
the bottom line,
we don't think Brock is healthy.
The bottom line is you need to treat Brock as if he has a legitimate injury. Just because it's turf toe doesn't mean that he's healthy, or just because since it's turf toe he can play on it. Technically he can, but if he steps wrong on it, he can get in a lot of pain. Neil says Sean's comment's valid. Stupid to give you some background on me. I covered the Niners back in the Walsh era in radio from 85 to 88. So I have seen how teams win rings, how a general manager goes about it, how an offensive coordinator deals with his charges. They had Montana. I interviewed a ton of Hall of Famers. I talked to Walsh. I talked to McVay. I talked to the defensive and offensive coordinators. I had a lot of education. Going to those Niner games in the press box, I would usually sit next to the advanced scout, and that scout would tell me what he knows about building a team and how you succeed. So I had an education from the very best. So I wouldn't say that this fan knows nothing.
Yeah.
I know plenty. It's just that I'm older than dirt, and I've
nice.
been around forever. And so, you can say, people can say you're just being a fan, you're being over emotional. I can get that. Now, Neil has said that you need to keep it in balance, that you need to see the positive as well as the negative. I try to do that, but I come across as too negative too often. Part of that's frustration that as an older generation Niner fan, I'm frustrated at 30 years of no rings. I'm frustrated at Shanahan doing things that I know from my education back in the day and its heyday. That this is wrong. This is not how it succeeds. This is not how you win a ring. I saw that firsthand as a reporter. It was invaluable education. So, in my defense, I would say I'm not a know nothing fan just being overly emotional. It's just that I have seen how it works. My frustration is take from those lessons, learn what Walsh did and apply it now, and you'll.
I always have such an appreciation for having Tom on. He has such incredible insight. His articles are really, really well detailed. So please check them out on Twitter. It's Ninercast, Tom Jensen on Twitter. I think Grant posted your article while we were streaming. Yeah. So everything that we talked about in much more detail, all the implications from the 49ers for their place in the NFC and the NFL in general, all is laid out in Tom's article. He did the service of sending it to me right before the show since it wasn't posted. So it really helped outline our show today. And I always really, really appreciate having such an incredible for Tom. And it makes me feel like a smarter fan. And I love being able to do a show beside you. I know.
Me too. So me too. It's been an honor. It's been fun, and it's been great.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for the kind. Kyle is not his teaching, not his development. My issue with Kyle is general manager. That's my issue. Yeah. You have to build the team correctly. You have to draft correctly. You have to make good decisions. They don't.
Yeah. I appreciate everyone who, you know what I mean, like agrees or disagrees in the comments. You guys are all allowed to have your own opinion. What I would suggest is if you come into the show at, an hour 20-minute show, maybe go back and listen to the whole thing. Because some of the things that you're arguing are not things that Tom said. We appreciate having you if you disagree or don't disagree. I do usually try to ask, you can keep your criticisms. We don't need to be calling each other clowns, word names in the chat or to me or my guests. But I appreciate you guys. See, now he's saying, Tom, look, now he's changing his tune. Tom's cool.
Well, thanks. Okay, well.
Thank you guys so much. I really
thanks, everybody.
You. Give me a like, give me a subscribe. It really does help out with my channel. Once again, my prayers go out to Michael because that was kind of breaking news. I know it was suspected that he tore his ACL, but it has now been confirmed. Has surgery this week. So hopefully the surgery for Michael goes well. And I really appreciate you guys all. I said it at the beginning of the show, but if you haven't yet, you have 3-4 more hours. So exercise your right to vote. Thank you guys so much, and give me a like and subscribe. And then, like I said, really go check out Tom's article because it goes into much more detail and it was just posted. Really appreciate you guys, and good luck Niners against the Rams. I'll be going live before that, so check me out. See you next week.